My house bunny is eating my roses. He's been inside marking his territory. You need to eat the bigger bushes. Go on. The little ones can't handle it. So he marks his pathways over and over and over again, so that if there's danger, he knows exactly where the hidey holes are and where to run. I want to talk about this acronym DARVO. I've discovered some people actually don't know what it means. You're going to be seeing, by the way, extremely messy property after days of heavy rain. No flooding though, thank goodness. DARVO, D-A-R-V-O. Deny, accuse, reverse, victim, oppressor. I also call it defend, attack, reverse, victim, offender. And what it is when somebody has done something wrong. Woo! When someone has done something wrong and you bring it up, that they first deny it or defend what they did. It wasn't what you think, it was something else. And then they go after accusing you of something bad. Sometimes, in extreme cases, they will, I have to make sure my gate's blocked, they will attack. And then they reverse the role of victim and oppressor. One of the most brilliant examples of this, if you didn't see it, was the Gayle King interview with R. Kelly, who was, before Diddy, was one of the great abusers, having all his trafficked women and cult-like activity going on. And he did this on national television, where she brought up all the trafficking charges, the abuse, all the women, etc. And on national TV, he denies it all. Then he stands up, stomping around the stage on national television, Gayle King, screaming that he is being attacked and accused unfairly, and he didn't do any of those things, and he is the victim, and they're raking him over the coals, and they're ruining his music career, and oh my God. And Gayle King apparently had some coaching, and seemed to be expecting this, because she just very calmly held her ground while he went on a rampage across the stage. And this was a perfect example of DARVO in the extreme of a malignant narcissist. But there are more minor examples where somebody isn't a malignant narcissist. They just perhaps are unhealed, filled with shame, so they do not take any responsibility for their actions ever. And I'll try to give a couple of examples of that. I had some students who, my half of it was giving them a chance, not once, but twice, sometimes more even, whereupon they were put in a position to kind of step up their responsibilities so they could learn and grow their talents and experience leadership and have some mentorship around it. And they ended up taking over my groups completely without my knowledge. I mean, I found out. It wasn't like we talked about it and asked about it. And then it was shut down one time by my own teacher, who kind of stepped in as well, saying to me, "How could you let that happen?" I'm like, because I'm an idiot and trust people too much, and always like to help people advance, and don't think of my own protection around that sometimes, maybe most of the time. So in one occasion in particular, the person, I continued to work with them. They said they were sorry, etc., but that was it. Mostly crying in tears and acting like a victim. In other words, they did something to me, and they cried to me, and they were upset, wanting my condolences, my support, and my forgiveness, and on their end having to do nothing to earn that. In other words, no amends, no going over what happened, no discussion about it, simply waiting to be forgiven and get back on the trail. So I managed to hold back the "it's okay, you're forgiven," and just left it as, this is something you'll work on. And one day, hopefully you'll bring it up like an inventory, and something will be done. And instead, what happened over a period of a number of years, continued to work with this person who did a lot of work on themselves, I think, with some other people, also with me, is that every time we talk, there would be a sentence something like this. It got worse over the years, so then luckily contact was ended. I let the person end the contact so it couldn't be yet another feather in the victim cap of their hat. But the conversation would be, "I know you don't like me, but I'm begging you to help me." Well, it had nothing to do with like or dislike. What was going on was, once again, wanting to be off the hook for their responsibility of doing a bad thing to me more than once, and then trying to manipulate me into taking care of their emotions, their guilt, their shame, their wrongdoing, and to make them feel better, so that there had to be no work on their end whatsoever regarding this thing that had happened, that their actions that they had taken, that they knew about, they did it. Yeah, there was no hiding it, just like R. Kelly, just like Diddy. So why am I bringing this up? Because if you're a good-hearted, kind, forgiving person, which I am, you will often err on the side of letting people off the hook for doing their own work. And what happens is they end up repeating the pattern over and over again until the pattern is broken. So you'll have people, this happens a lot in families, where somebody will be really shitty to you, maybe harmful to you financially even. And then you'll bring it up. As some people like to say, "You called me out." That is not calling out. Calling out is an attack. It's meant to start a fight. Bringing something up is typically done for resolution, understanding, amends, repair, etc. And I've had people say that to me. "You called me out." I said, "No, you asked me a question, and I answered honestly. If you wanted to see somebody who makes you feel good all the time, you have chosen to work with the wrong kind of teacher." I said that as a professor, as well as all the spiritual work that I do. So after I, with this person, for a long time, absolutely refused to let them off the hook. I would just let them go on with their, "I know you hate me, but can you please help me?" And I would just let that rant go on. And then they would ask for help, and I would give them help. So I would not respond to their marketing of, "I am the victim." So it's like, I stabbed you, I made you bleed, and now that it's all over, I need your help. But I know I'm going to suffer because you hate me. And the stabbing is never talked about, ever. So I want to point this out as a very subtle, manipulative tactic that not just narcissists do, this DARVO, but people do who are shame-based and who have no skills in taking responsibility for their actions and no integrity about making amends, but instead will go out of their way to try to manipulate someone into helping them again without them having to clean up anything on their end of life. And I hate to say this, but so many people do this. In part A lot of people are just uneducated in being mentally healthy. But the other part, I think, is there's a lot of the pendulum swing into romanticizing victimhood. For example, the Me Too movement, fabulous, needed to happen. But then it swings a little bit too far where everything is Me Too. And we had to start sorting through those in court cases and going, no, that didn't really happen. And this isn't just the Me Too movement. This is every movement this happens. To do something new, typically the pendulum swings from one extreme to another, back and forth until a more balanced middle ground is found. So trust me, I am not criticizing the Me Too movement. I'm so glad it happened. And we have to keep things in balance and get it back in balance. So, this idea of being a victim has gotten popularized. I found a lot of people who came to me out of mainstream psychology would do terrible things to me and to other people. And then they'd cry, but I'm a victim of my childhood. I have unresolved trauma. My therapist told me that. And I'm like, but you're 45 years old. And you stopped therapy like 4 years ago. I wasn't laughing when I said it. So I found, I don't know if it's still true right now, because I haven't run into people coming out of, 10, 15 years of therapy, 8 years of therapy, right now, mainstream therapy. But when I had a lot of those people, what I kept hearing was my therapist is pointing out how much I've been traumatized. Okay, and trauma is a real thing. Now also, when you get into a society with a lot of privilege and entitlement, trauma gets redefined. Like, my cell phone broke is now trauma. But in a developing nation, is my children are starving is trauma. So DARVO happens a lot now because, here's my morning chores, lots of people think that they have been traumatized, that maybe 10 years ago it would have been called resilience. Like, yes, that happened, and you got the skills to keep going, and you've got some work to do still, and you're okay. Like, you broke your arm. You did not lose both of your arms, and now you're a cripple for life, and you can't work. So trauma in entitlement populations is very, very different. And why it became so popular in mainstream therapy, I don't know, except maybe it keeps people coming back to therapy. Because think about it. If you're a victim and you're seeing a therapist and you're being made to feel better and it happened to you and here's your scars and here's how you're paying for it, that's a lot easier than saying, let's look at your part of what happened, not for blame or anything, but like, what did you do so you never do it again? How did you not defend yourself? How did you not cooperate? How did you keep going because you got greedy because this person had money, so you allowed this to happen and you thought you'd get this from them and that from them, and then they victimized you, but your part of it was greed. So let's look at that. That doesn't let the other person off the hook. So that kind of approach does not keep people coming to therapy. They're like, I'm out of here. Who wants to do that hard work, right? By the way, that's the hard work of 12-step programs, and a lot of people go to 12-step for fellowship, and they never do a 4th-step inventory, and they never do amends. They never do that hard work. They just go for fellowship, and it's enough to keep them more sober than they were. And if they're alcoholics, maybe alcoholics sober, but not the behavioral part of alcoholism sober. It also can explain why someone who has a practice like I do, that's based on your work, your honesty, your responsibilities in recovery, will never be commercial. Because who can sell, hey, come and I'll give you a shovel and you get to dig a road by hand? Nope. Nobody wants that. So in the meantime, do watch out for DARVO. And if you meet it, there is no arguing with a person who does DARVO. The best you can do is completely stay out of the conversation. Don't make them feel better. Don't rewrite the script for them. Don't justify it. Don't explain it. Don't apologize. Don't hug them. Just say, well, this is something you have to figure out. I have my own end of things to figure out. Oh, well, can you talk to me about it? And la, la, la. Put them off. Put them off until they're ready to come forward first with what they've looked at. And if they're still peddling only victim, when really they were the wrongdoer, you're going to have to once again deflect the conversation. There might be some other ways around this. I'm not a clinical therapist, never wanted to be, never liked mainstream psychology enough to become that way, but I do love psychology. So you can research how to respond to DARVO. And remember, it doesn't have to be a malignant narcissist who has trafficked you for DARVO to occur. It can be your mother-in-law. It can be one of your students. Those of you who teach, I think you're very familiar with this kind of thing with students, where you give someone a B or a D, or you write them up for bad behavior, and they start crying. And then when they don't get their way, especially you'll see this in elementary school a lot right now, the kids will attack you. Well, you're a racist. This is happening because this or that. No, you didn't do your work. That's why this is happening. No, it's because, etc. So I think teachers see this a lot, especially in younger populations. I'm not sure how much this happens in colleges anymore, but it might. Here in California, with no student left behind, DARVO became the standard of behavior, because all a student had to do is complain and cry victim, and the system would do whatever it had to do to get you through to the next class. And I remember dealing with this as a professor with freshmen, and students telling me how they regretted now hustling the system, because they were like a year or two behind where they should be to be in college, because they had learned to work the DARVO system. They didn't call it that, but they learned to work the system of no student left behind. So the whole culture kind of supports this right now in this era, and it's tricky that way. And you might need some skill sets with it, because for me, before I learned about DARVO, I fell for it, where people would say, you hate me, this happened, and the inference was, they never said this, you haven't forgiven me. Like, I'm supposed to forgive you? For what? You never even owned what you did. You just got busted, and now you want forgiveness. I think it's a really important skill set to know about. I wish I had known about it sooner and didn't have to learn about it by experience. I actually learned about DARVO before it was called DARVO. I mean, I had figured out this routine, crying victim is what I called it. But then when narcissism became a big topic, thank goodness it did, I learned that acronym, and I went, oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. So I hope this helps. And just a reminder, I have an online group going on with meditation and energy work, readings, healings, mostly silent meditation, exercises with energy, etc., to try to provide people low-cost access. Plus, if you're in a group, you can often meet outside of group with friends and other people. Oh, my bunny got out. He's not supposed to be there. So now you have a little bit of support, a little bit of community, and that can help you work outside. What is the point of this stuff? Well, my main practice is to become obsolete, which is I want everybody to learn how to access guidance on their own throughout the day when you need it most. And to do that, you have to practice. Kind of like, You have to go to the gym and get muscles. And there's no way to do it but go to the gym and get muscles. There's no other way. Now we're going to have to herd the bunny. It's going to drive me crazy. Come on, Bodie. So, if you'd like to join a group, it's $45 a session. However, it's discounted if you sign up for 4 sessions. Come on, Bodie. Come on. No. Oh, you're going to kill me. And it's heavily discounted if you sign up for 12 sessions. And those sessions you can do in combination Wednesday evening, Sunday morning, either time. You can come twice a week if you want, once a week. But you have to use them consecutively. In other words, you can't take weeks off. On my website, drmarie.org, check it out, and hope to meet some of you. I got to go catch the bunny.